Welcome everybody. This is the Battle of the TMS 2. If you have missed number 1, there's a recap blog post that you guys can check it out. So I'm just gonna introduce it real quick. We here at Softcrylic, I'm gonna look at the camera actually. We work with the 4 major tag management systems at any given point. Some of us have experience in all 4, other of us just deep experience in 1. But we're always trying to learn more and more about them every day, right? And as we do, we always like to battle it out in terms of, the greatness or inferiority about the tag managers that we live or die with. And so we do that by cracking jokes about them. And we thought it'd be fun to open the discussion up to the industry and help us make fun of each other while we collectively continue to learn more about each tag manager. So we hope to run a few more battles. We're hoping to get better at them over time and then open the door to experts around the globe to join us. And today we actually have 2 experts joining us and they are battling with us, right here, shoulder to shoulder. Let me keep going down here. Can you guys still see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, why can't I? There we go. So that's the intro. We're gonna go over a disclaimer, and then the way this is gonna work is we're gonna do we're aiming for 4 rounds of questions, 8 minutes each. We're changing it a little bit from the first round where we're letting 1 minute of discussions after questions. Then we're gonna let people vote through the polls, 30 seconds each. And then if we have time, closing statements and an end survey. This time, the end survey will include a preview of the battle 3 questions. So it would be very cool for you guys to stay towards the end and vote for which questions you want to see, battled next battle, which is the preview right there. Before, I wanted to share some stats on the first battle. So we actually had 22 attendees last time. And out of those, 9 people responded to the survey and 100% of those enjoyed the first battle. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this one as well. 4 people had interest in battling and 2 of them actually signed up and we have them here with us today. And then 2 other people submitted questions, which we're gonna discuss one of them today. In terms of disclaimer, this battle purely based on our expertise in implementing and managing tag managers in real world scenarios. We're not influenced by anybody, none of the tag management platforms, or by any third-party agencies to exaggerate or short-tell functionality. Everybody's opinion is their own, and because they're opinions, they can include factually incorrect statements on how a TMS may operate. So we rely on you guys, the audience, to call us out, or if you want to battle us, and then help us correct these things during or after the webinar. We always want the truth. And so if you have a strong opinion or a new tag manager you would like battled or anything, just email us down here. And then the hard stop is at 1:45. In terms of the panel, so I'm Jean-Paul. I am the moderator today. I lead the digital analytics practice at Softcrylic. I'm gonna hand it right over to Rydal. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rydal, the data architect for Wellsoft.
Nice. And Rydal's gonna be battling for Google Tag Manager.
Yes, yes.
Cool. Ray?
Hey, I'm a senior consultant at Softcrylic, and I'll be defending Launch, Adobe Launch.
All right. Jason?
Hey, I'm Jason Moore. I'll be on the Tealium side. I worked with JP at Softcrylic doing implementations there with both GTM as well as Tealium, but I'll be taking Tealium today.
All right. And he's the incumbent winner, by the way. Cheyenne.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Cheyenne Samani. I lead Delta Airlines digital marketing tools team. I've been with Delta for 5 years and I will be defending Insight and Tag Manager.
Okay, very nice. So with that said, I am going to stop the screen share. How do I stop the screen share here? Something's going on. I can't stop the screen share, but I will jump right into the questions. So let me do something here. Excuse the technical difficulties. I'm going to have a clock here on my phone, and basically it's going to be a timer for 90 seconds. And at the end of that 90 seconds, we're gonna let the next person battle it out. So, first question is, one second. So the first question for today is, how much does your tag manager cost? And I'm going to start with the Rydal.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so GTM is completely, Google Tag Manager is completely free. It has no limits, number of pages, any of that stuff. It's completely free to the public. Anybody can use it. You can sign up and get started as quickly as possible.
All right. Very nice. So, Jason.
Oh man, you're gonna make me follow that. Okay. So, you know, this is a little bit of a disadvantage when your competition is free. But frankly, the answer to this varies. You know, they've got a model that is based on a couple things. One of which would be the size of your business, right? So they do take that into consideration when they structure the price. The other thing that they take into consideration is you can do buy-ups for service, so that you have dedicated amount of support hours. So really, it boils down to that. You know, if I was comparing the volume to, you know, something like, you know, pairing it with your analytics tool, you're not going to be paying as much for Tealium service as you are for your analytics tool. So it's not going to be, you know, in excess of that, but it's not cheap, and I'll leave it at that.
Not cheap. Okay. Let's hand it over to Ray.
Great. Yeah. So Adobe Launch is free in the sense that it comes with any of the Adobe Experience Cloud products. So if you buy Target or if you buy Analytics, it comes with that. I put it in quotes because, I mean, those are top tier products. You're not getting a deal on those, but you're getting kind of best in class products, and along with it, a best in class tag manager.
All right. So also free. Let's see, Insighten. Go ahead, Cheyenne.
Yeah, sure. So my answer is probably going to be similar to Tealium here, and I probably won't use the whole time here, but all I'll say is that Insighten is an enterprise tool, and like most enterprise tools, they don't publish their price books publicly. It's definitely based on your server call volume, also kind of the size of your organization, similar to what Tealium is. And I'll say that it's likely to be competitive with the other tools in this space. And of course, you know, Insighten also has support add-ons and other services add-ons, so that can also be factored in.
Okay.
So not cheap.
Not free, not cheap. Got it. All right. Let's open it up for discussions. You know, does anybody have anything to say about that? It's 1 minute. About anyone. You know, anyone can say anything to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in at the beginning here, and I'll probably say, like, well, for GTM, like, well, yes, it's free. Nothing's ever truly free, right? I mean, you're essentially giving Google essentially anonymized data about your container, right? And then also with the free version, you miss out on all of the support that you would normally get with the other platforms that you're paying for. And for Adobe Launch, I'll probably say, well, advertise it's free. It's more like of a free add-on. And you have to have another Adobe product to essentially have benefit of that. And there's no guarantee that Adobe Launch will always be free. So okay. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think, and you know, probably getting a little bit out of the question here, but you know, I think with the price, there's a lot more that comes with it, right? I mean, you talk about the tag library, the services, all that other stuff. So, you know, those kind of things have to be considered when you consider the price too.
All right, so time is over. Ray, Rydal, any last minute rebuttals there?
Well, one thing I was going to say to Cheyenne's point is, yeah, good point about support, but because it's Google, there is an immense level of support from people, the general public. So, I mean, there are tons of about fixing issues, solving problems. But yes, you get a good point about you don't get support with that, but it's very, very easy for you to find a solution online.
Okay.
Using Google. So
Google.
it's solving a problem, yes.
All right. And Ray, are you gonna say anything, or just because it's free you have nothing to say?
You know, I think it's in that sweet spot. It's not going to cost you any more, but you still control all your own data.
Okay. Very nice. Moving on. All right. So now actually the polling. I'm gonna end the original one, and I'm going to relaunch a new one. Where is it? Question 1. All right. So who won that round? We have 30 seconds. And I probably should have planned this better. Here we go. Ooh, I see a lot of votes going into GTM. None of them to Adobe Launch yet, interestingly. Oh, there's a timer on the poll right there, I can see. Insighten.
Insighten.
Voting for Insighten. All right, 3 seconds,
On
2,
the board.
1. All right, a few more votes. I see Launch coming in. All right, dismiss. All right, ending the polling. Cool. So now question 2. Question two is, how straightforward is it to sequence tags and create dependencies? And does it always work as you expect? Let's start with Launch. Ray.
Okay, so I'm going to admit this was a downside of DTM, very challenging. With Launch, there's a ton of stuff that allows you to do this really pretty well. There's all sorts of different event types, so you can make sure your rule is triggering on the appropriate event. Within those event types, you can then have sort of tiebreakers using the load order parameters, or the order parameter. So if you have 2 rules running both at page bottom, you can decide which one is going to run first. So what that does is then that kicks off that rule first. Then within that rule, some things may be synchronous, some things may be asynchronous. And that's where it maybe isn't always totally intuitive, but once you've really understand the tool, you'll know. And
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay. If you don't want everything just sort of kicking off asynchronously, which does help with page load time, they have a new feature where you can enable sequential load ordering, and everything will run essentially sequentially in the logical order that you would expect. So things don't run asynchronously. So you get one or other, you get the best of both worlds depending on your situation.
Right. Nice. Okay. Handing it over to Jason. Tealium.
Man, this is Tealium all the way. So by far better than any of the other tools. So Tealium really excels here in that they give you functionality based off of their order of operations. So, I think it's 8 steps. I don't know them by heart, but essentially you can sequence not just tags, but extensions or JavaScript snippets, all to trigger within their 8 different order of operation steps. And then within each of those steps, you can sequence by dragging and dropping the position that you want the items within that step to trigger. So you have full control of how that stuff gets handled. And they do it in a way that's visually intuitive. So you kind of think of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you're dragging and dropping things into their various steps and into the various sequence within that step. And in doing that, you can essentially make anything happen in any sequence that you want throughout the entire process of the tool loading on the site.
All right.
Good.
Sounds cool. I'm gonna hand it over to Cheyenne.
All right, yeah. So Insighten also definitely has this capability. It's built right into the workflow when you're creating a new tag or editing a tag. Going to kind of Ray's point of like your synchronous tags will essentially fire first. meaning those tags will essentially load, like I mentioned first, and then you have, so those are like your A/B testing tools. And then those are followed by your async tags that can load essentially at any time. And then Inciting has 3 options of sequencing. They either fires immediately, when the page is interactive and the page is fully loaded. And then you can also create custom events to bind your tags to sequence and fire off. For the most part, that pretty much takes care of most of the sequencing that you would need. Anything else that you need to do more than that in a particular order, you can chain tags together, and that functionality is built in. And there's dependency, so that usually is taking care of that. And then of course, Insight and support is really helpful in helping you understand the platform as well.
Okay. So you need Insight and support. Got it. Okay. Rido.
Yeah, so GTM is quite simple. There are a few ways you can do it without doing anything customizable or custom work. One of the ways is to use priority, so you can actually sort out, just like what Jason was saying about Tealium, kind of order where you want each tag to execute and the order in which them to execute. There's also another functionality that allows you to do a pre and a post tag execution. So you can say, for this specific tag, I want to fire these other tags first, or I want to fire these tags after. And usually combining those 2 functionality, I can get to about 99% of what I want to do at the end of the day. There's a third option also of scheduling. I'm using like the time or the date to kind of execute a tag. But that's a very, very rare, like if you have like a marketing thing going on where it's a 2-day thing, you want to do that. But most of the time, using priorities or using tag sequencing can get the job done.
Okay. So you can do it.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Let's give it up. Let's do 1 minute discussions. So who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, having really strong sequencing is great, but don't forget about page load order. I mean, page speed. You know, you should be doing an architecture where asynchronous is being used to your advantage. So
I agree with Ray there. But anyway, I think all tag managers do this somewhat well in their own way.
Yeah.
And you have to, right? This is one of the core features of a tag management product. You have to do this well. And I think, you know, all tag managers in their own way, like I mentioned, do this somewhat well.
How difficult is it to do it with Tealium though?
Not at all.
Not at all?
I mean, essentially you can choose when you're creating a tag, how it fits into that flow, as well as you can edit that flow, you know, independent of when you're editing an individual tag. So it's intuitive, it's easy, it's good.
Intuitive. And with GTM, does it always work as you expect?
Yeah, so it always works as I expect. Sometimes you come across, did you say time's up?
Time's up, but you can.
Oh, I would just say sometimes you come across some issues where it's more around what Sharon said around asynchronous, right? If you have a script that takes too long to execute or it fires too fast, then you get to play around with it a little bit. But that's usually advanced, sort of advanced sort of work. But
Okay.
for most of the time it does work, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the reason why it's in the advanced settings also.
All right. So most of the time it works. Got it.
Yeah,
cool.
true.
So launching is launched. So what is it? Sorry, polling is launched. 30 seconds to vote. And I see a lot of people are voting. Tealium, Insight, and launch. They're all, oh man. Helium.
Nobody likes GTM when it comes to sequencing.
Sorry, Rido.
Just a side note, JP, before you get accusatory, because you made me a co-host, I can't vote. So this is completely without influence.
Okay, got it. Okay.
same here.
I'm disabled. I can't root for myself here. So
Got it. All right, so launch one, this one.
Thanks, guys.
Moving on to the third one. So how straightforward is it to deploy, and this was a question we got from the audience. How straightforward is it to deploy personalization tools like Target or Optimizely and others? So we'll give a head start here to Cheyenne.
All right, so like most tag management tools, right, Insight has an app library for all the major personalization tools. So all you have to really do is go into the workflow, go to the tags menu, add a new tag. You choose from the app library. You can filter by category or the actual tag. If you know you're doing target, you can choose target. And then from there, each app has an option to essentially paste custom code. You can host custom code if you're hosting it in your CMS or elsewhere. And there's also in-app settings to be able to configure it manually. And then Insighten will fetch that configuration and host it for you. And they're constantly updating all of their apps and versions to stay up to date. So when you're using that option, just know that it's probably going to be getting the latest version of that framework. Insighten, I will say, is a bit more technical on the side of things, which doesn't have to be a bad thing when you're setting up these heavy tools efficiently, because if you're using a partner who is well versed in the integration, like a consulting partner, an IT counterpart, or a technical MarTech team, in this case, Insighten is beneficial because you have that flexibility to adjust any part of the code, the logic, the execution. That makes most sense to the technical folks without the need of a tag management documentation.
Ooh, I like that. I like that argument a lot. Let's go to Rydell.
Yeah, so to get out these tags out there is pretty straightforward. There's a couple of things. So GTM does have a list of built-in tags. Now, what I found is that a lot of the vendors don't have that built in, because you sort of have to build your own and kind of, you know, push it to them and then them host it and add it to GTM. So if you're looking for something that is just going to be add optimizely and put in ID and save, it is not that straightforward. However, all of these vendors do have custom HTML. So GTM is pretty flexible when it comes to that. You can use custom HTML to kind of implement that. And then there are other options also where you can kind of sort of like build your own custom tag into GTM, and if you want to get a little more advanced. So straightforward in the sense of copy and paste HTML code, but not so straightforward if you want something that is more like a UI add-in, because the vendor themselves have to add that into GTM, and most of them haven't done that so far. So that's sort of the disadvantage. But again, as I said, HTML is pretty straightforward to get that in there.
Okay, through custom HTML.
Is the way to go usually, yeah.
Got it. Jason.
Yeah, I'd say that Tealium is pretty well suited for this. I mean, you know, in the case where, you know, one of these tools has, like if it's in the library, it's straightforward, right? It's an interface. You got to plug in your account ID, you know, the same things that you would have to do when you're configuring any other tag. Now, in the case where it's not in the library, I'd say it's a little bit at a disadvantage when you consider something like GTM, where you just kind of copy and paste it in there. It's a little bit more complex when you get into Tealium custom tags. But you know, again, they've got a really expansive library, and the majority of the big player tools have a tool in there. What I would say though is just kind of something to think about. Anytime you're deploying a tool like this through a tag manager, is your performance with this is going to be based on how your tag manager is deployed on the page. And if you're thinking about something that does personalization, you're going to want that thing put high up on the page, because if it loads 4 seconds into your page load after people see images, that's where you get the flicker and some of those other things. So, you know, from a configuration standpoint, I think it's pretty straightforward and in line with the other tools, but just a consideration there is how your tag manager is deployed, and should you do one of these tools through a tag manager? It's a question you should ask.
Okay, so deflecting a little bit to setting up architecture, got it. Ray.
Yeah, so if you're loading launch synchronously, I think really the only consideration is like what Jason mentioned, is making sure it's as high up as possible. You know, launch does target, obviously, like in a couple clicks. It's super easy. I don't think Optimizely has an extension, but if they ever wanted to do, they could build an extension. A lot of it would probably be like what Rydell was saying, would be copy paste. I think Launch might be the only tag manager here that has an option to truly load asynchronous. So by actually having the script have the async tag at the end, Jason's maybe she's gonna say no. Okay.
But he's saying
well,
no.
Well, nobody wanted to address this. So I'll go for it, because if you're loading a personalization tool while it's loading synchronously or asynchronously, you will likely get flicker. So actually, Adobe has a solution for this with Launch, where they have a bit of code that you copy and paste when you embed Launch before launch, and that will essentially hide the page, and then when target loads, it unhides the page and prevents any sort of flickering. So obviously, if you use launch with their tool target, then it's really pretty seamless, and you still get the async benefits.
All right, I like it. Like it very much. Also deflecting a little bit there on the anti-flicker, but it's important. So let's see. So who has anything to say about that? I saw a lot of shaking heads. 1 minute.
Well, I mean, one thing I want to say though, for when it comes to like Adobe Launch, I think something like Adobe Target just works better with Launch. And that's one of the things you have to consider, right? It's like if using a tag manager, is it going to work with everything? Or in the case of if you go by Target, you might find it a little bit more complex to implement in any other tag manager other than Launch, because if you tie them to like the audience manager or anything, it doesn't really work very well. It's built to work as a single system.
I agree with that, yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
there's
and I think GTM is actually another example of that, where GTM and the Google products are really well integrated with that. So kind of throwing you a bone. I expect you to pay that back. But just touching on the asynchronous bit, that's definitely not a unique feature. That's something that lives on the Tealium side as well as on some of the other tools. So
very important to do the anti-flicker. All right, I'm gonna launch the polling here. 30 seconds. Let's see who starts winning this race. Bam, and off to the start, inciting, blowing it out of the water with 3 votes. Adobe Launch, caught up.
Okay.
Not bad. Oh, man.
GTM is dead in the water again.
GTM, dead in the water. What's going on? What's going on, guys?
Probably nobody does optimization with GTM.
Yes, nobody does optimization. GTM. All right, and polling. Ooh, we got a tie. That was interesting. Okay, so 4th question. How is user management done? And is it possible to restrict users from working with certain types of tags if you want that level of control? So we'll start with Jason.
yeah, I think Tealium's pretty good at this. They've got a couple different types of permissions. You've got like account level permissions, and then you've got sort of action related permissions. The account ones are restricting people from getting into certain accounts, creating accounts, things of that nature. Whereas the action ones are more like is somebody allowed to interact with JavaScript? Is somebody allowed to interact with certain types of tags? So they've got a really good set of features there. I think one of the nice features that goes with Tealium and their user account setup or their user settings is you can broadcast certain permissions to groups of users. So you can select multiple people and broadcast a set of changes. So instead of having to go through each individual user, you can just kind of fire it off like that. So I do think that's a good advantage there. But in terms of the normal restrictions, I think they're detailed. They've got a good set of things that you can toggle on and toggle off, and I don't think you're limited at all. So it's a good tool set.
Interesting that you can restrict like certain types of JavaScript and things like that. It's pretty interesting. Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Rydell, sorry.
Yeah, so GTM is, I'll be the first to say GTM is lacking a little bit on this space. It does have user management at the account level and the container level, and you can do things like read access, edit, publish, and things like that. However, it does not have the ability to restrict a user to like a specific type of tag and say, hey, you can only do Facebook tag, or you can only do custom HTML. So that's the only limitation I've seen so far compared to the other tag managers out there. But it does have things like even user groups. You can create a group of users and kind of combine that together to make it easier for you to manage. And you can kind of invite users using different email. It doesn't have to be Gmail. But it doesn't have the way to sort of say, hey, for a specific tag, this user can only approve it or can only edit it. So that's the only limitation I'm aware of.
Okay. Cheyenne.
Sure. So I actually do believe Insight does this really well. I think it's built into like their platform well. It's very intuitive. All you really have to do is go into the menu item. You're either setting up a new user or changing, if you're changing permissions or adding permissions. There's a lot of built-in permissions and roles that are already predefined. And then when you're talking about on the security side of things, they have available integrations that allow for single sign-on or SAML solutions, multi-factor authentication to make sure that your container is really secure and no one can get in if they don't truly have access. You can define a broad range of rules and roles around, what types of apps can people access. So similar, if they can use custom JavaScript or they're only allowed to use the Adobe Target app or so on and so forth. Setting up those permissions are super easy. It just uses multiple modules and dropdowns that makes it super simple to create and manage.
Very robust. Sounds like it. Ray?
Yeah, so Adobe's been putting a lot of work into this at their whole like cloud level, and I think the UI leaves something to be desired. It's not terribly intuitive. I'd be the first to say that. But once you have somebody on the team who understands how to do it, you can get things done that everything pretty much you would expect, right? You can restrict at the platform level, which is kind of neat. So if you want to say they're an app developer, they can only use launch properties that are app related versus web related. You can have restrictions at the property level, basically view, edit, approve, publish, kind of standard. I don't believe you can restrict whether somebody could create a rule that uses an extension, but you can, you do have the ability to restrict whether they can create or edit an extension. So some amount of control there. And then you also have a couple settings at the company level, whether you can create, edit, or delete a property, and whether or not you are able to develop an extension. So that's one of the features. So I'm hoping to see a few more enhancements there, but it gets the job done.
Gets the job done. Okay. So it sounds like a different approach there. Not as robust, but let's see. What do you have to say about that, guys? 1 minute for discussion.
One thing that's kind of nice, just to keep this going, is it's the same interface you would use for all your other Adobe Experience Cloud products. So you kind of go into one place and you can manage analytics, target, launch. You can kind of do that all.
So it's basically all the same very confusing admin panel filled with convoluted menu items and product groupings and user groupings. It gets really messy really fast.
It's true, but you can do it all in one place. You can get it used all in one place.
I mean, from my perspective, though, I think one thing I do like about GTM, it's very simple. So yeah, it doesn't do a ton of the enterprise level stuff, as I'll call those things, like permissions at this level, but majority of the users that use GTM don't need that. Why? So I think that they cover a lot of what GTM is and what the user base, their target user base. And that's just my 2 cents around it, saying that, I think the simplicity of this is very useful for their user base.
Okay.
They're not an enterprise,
So GTM is not enterprise.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Cool. Well, that takes us to the end of the voting. So let me launch the polling here. Let's see who will. Bam! Again, Insighten, right?
Insighten again.
Dude, we got.
It's taking it all.
Over here. What is it? Whoa!
Oh, nice.
No, you know what? I think Insighten did, or I think Insighten took that one. If I were voting, I would vote for Insighten. Actually.
Very impartial, JP.
I mean, I'm not voting.
Oh, we have Insighten employees voting.
How many employees do we have here?
How many employees?
None. I don't see any.
Okay.
I don't see any. We're good.
It is done.
It's an 80% vote right there. Yeah.
Truly unbiased.
All right. So we are at time with the questions. Thank you so much, everybody. Right now, I want to give a minute of closing statements to each one of you. Based on the discussions we've had. So I'm going to start with Cheyenne, since you had a high note there.
Oh, thank you. So I guess all I'll say is that when it comes to the administration side of things, Insight makes our tools super simple to use, giving users proper provisioning, creating dependencies. It's all super simple. When it comes to the launching the personalization tools and the tagging, it's definitely a little bit more on the technical side of things, which for operational knowledge, for performance, for security benefits, as an organization, you do want to see what's behind the curtain, how things work, the black box, or to say, right? To know what you're getting into. And 9 times out of 10, someone somewhat technical is going to be working on that, handling those things anyways. And so to me, that's what makes Insight such a great tag manager and a developer's choice, a technical choice of a tag manager.
All right, so developer friendly, you can get the flexibility, but with that flexibility comes a lot of responsibility as well. And a lot of, a lot of money support. Okay, let's go with Rydell.
Well, I mean, just as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the things I would say is that for being free, is a very, very powerful tool. It's super simple. It's an amazing amount of non-technical savvy people that I see in GTM doing basic stuff. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's the 10% enterprise level functionality that you need. You may not get that from GTM, but majority of everything else that you do on day-to-day basis, which is just like adding a tag, making a simple track, tagging and things like that, putting in media pixels. It's super easy, super straightforward, 2 or 3 clicks and you're done. So you just kind of say, okay, well, if I'm working for the FBI, yes, I want an enterprise level, right? But if you're just an enterprise shop that has a retail store or something like that, I think you would do just well with GTM.
So FBI should not use GTM. I'm going to go to their website and check after. That's true. All right.
Anything crazy.
Jason.
Yeah, all right. So, I mean, Tealium is an enterprise level tool. And, I think if you hear the difference between each of these, I think that's the big obvious sort of takeaway. But, just functionally, I think they do a really good job of trying to capture as many tags and put them in their tag library as they can, because what they're trying to do from a user experience standpoint, meaning us as business users, is make it as easy as possible to basically point and click to put these tags on our site. And I think they do a really good job offering a support model that enables that. And they put the developments in behind the scenes so that you don't have to. So it's designed to be less technical. There are some areas where you can get technical, like when you talk about tag sequencing. That's not something that you would do in a mom and pop shop necessarily, but they give you the ability to get technical while at the same time try to remove all of that complication. It does come with a cost, but frankly, I think it's worth I think it's worth it at an enterprise level.
Okay. Ray, closing statement, and then we'll start.
I mean, I think Launch's value proposition is hard to beat if you're starting fresh and you have an Adobe product. I mean, I don't see why even though Insight and Tealium might have a couple features that are appealing, there's almost certainly a parity in Launch, and I think quite a few that are even more streamlined. So, would you reach out to Adobe to try to buy it on its own? While maybe not. If you had Google, why not use Google Tag Manager? But if you're using anything Adobe, go with Launch. It's really
basically use Launch or GTM, basically.
Yeah, I mean, also just a quick footer is their development team is super active and is doing some really exciting stuff to keep it in best practice for the direction that client-side web JavaScript is going. So,
okay, very nice. All right, so guys, I am launching the closing poll for all the attendees. If you could answer those 3 questions while we wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for your opinions and your participation. I think we definitely heard a lot of enterprise versus non-enterprise. A lot of shaking heads to statements, and we'll see. I mean, these 4 tag managers are good. Each of them are good in their own respect, is what I got out of it. And some are more technical, and that could be an advantage, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, it is an advantage, but you know, it comes with the complexity. And Tealium sounds like it's just the easiest, most amazing tool ever.
It sure is, JP. You know, I still know some people over there too. If you want me to, you know, I can get them to talk to you.
Hey, we use Tealium. Tealium's great. Don't get me wrong. It's good stuff. And GTM, I'm gonna say I'm a little surprised there, Rydell, saying GTM's not enterprise. I don't know, man.
So when I mean by enterprise, you know, things like that level of control when it comes to user access, right?
Oh,
that's what you get for enterprise. Like, you know, mom and pop shop don't really care if somebody can add or not add a tag, you know, but a big company might care about that, and that's what I meant.
All right. And just for kicks, I did check the FBI website, and you are right. They're not using GTM. So I think those guys need to get a tag manager in place.
Yeah, they need to get Tealium or something.
Titan seemed like they had some pretty strong security settings there.
Yeah, and then Citing, I guess. Well, Citing was the winner, so we'll go to Citing. I recommend Citing for FBI.gov.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We ended 2 minutes early, which is great. And we will see you next time on Battle 3. If you want to participate, email us, send us questions, and we'll be following up. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. That was fun. Good.
Have a good day.